everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Genially. I'm Crisia, and I have a special guest today with us, Mark Lassoff. Thank you very much for being here today from Skillsprint. I'm very excited about this interview as well, and I'm sure that our community will enjoy it too. So, how are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you for inviting me to be here.
Now, thank you so much for accepting this. So this will be very short interview, but very interesting, and I have many questions. And one of my question is in this interview. So we're gonna start because I know that we would like to get more information about a skill sprint. So how did a skill sprint start?
Well, Skillsprint actually is a fairly new brand for me. I have been in the online training business for about 20 years, teaching digital technical skills online. And Skillsprints is a new business located at skillsprints.co. And the basic idea of the business is that everyone needs to improve their digital skills in order to move up in their career. So we have a daily newsletter that anyone can sign up for free. Each day, we send you a different skill sprint, teaching an individual skill. And like, for example, today, that's creating links with HTML. Next week, we're going to be talking about Python coding. The week after, search engine optimization. The way the company is monetized is through advanced certification courses for people who are serious about digging into a topic and want to get certified. So right now we're running a SQL certification course for people who want to do more database analysis and data management. And that'll be followed by a course on UI and user experience design using Figma. Those certification courses come out about every 3 weeks and give an in-depth experience. But anybody who's interested can go to skillsprints.co and sign up and be part of our digital skills movement and receive our daily training.
Wonderful. And it doesn't matter if you are a beginner or if you have, like, for example, in HTML, I'm like a beginner. Like,
we love beginners.
Yeah, that's amazing. We at Genially, we can embed codes and create the training like more engaging as well, inserting these HTML or iframe codes. And it actually caught my attention because it lets you to create more engaging content.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely. What's the course at a Skillsprint and why? What is the top course at Skillsprint?
Well, the top course over the years in all our brands has always been our web development course, which teaches people HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's the foundational languages in order to be a web developer. As times have changed, and that's going back, 20 years. As times have changed, however, what we're seeing is more people are interested in codeless technologies. So this year we're working on coming out with courses about codeless web development, codeless mobile development, codeless app development, because there are so many tools, as you know, out there that people can use without writing a whole bunch of code. I do think, though, that code still informs a lot of what people do in the digital world, and not necessarily being able to code, but understanding how it works, what it is a benefit to anyone. Just like if you were to go to the doctor, it benefits you to understand some basic biology and chemistry and how your body works so you can talk the doctor's language. And I think when it comes to digital, code is that language. So, but other courses that do really well are our Excel data analysis course. And then we have some very foundational courses, like a basic Word course that I think 50,000 people have enrolled in. That's actually taught by another one of our instructors in our company. So, it really runs the gamut. What's central for us is good teaching practice and relating to people as humans. In a time when I think a lot of learning is being dehumanized through automation and AI, we're going the opposite way and injecting more humanity into our learning, which people seem to like.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This is very interesting. What are your thoughts? Like, speaking of training and everything right now, today is virtual and remote. Like, what are your thoughts on adult learning these days?
I think there's a lot of people teaching and not a lot of people learning, to be honest with you. I think that, if you look at metrics like completion rates for courses, they're really poor. It somewhere hovers around 5%. If you look at usage of corporate learning management systems, again, pretty poor. The problem is, though, that a lot of these skills are necessary for people to improve and move on with their careers. A lot of people are talking about, even though unemployment is low in the US, it's still hard to get a job, and that's because of the skills gap.
Yeah.
The jobs that employers want, excuse me, the skills that employers are looking for are not the skills that people have. And that's at every level. The other thing about adult learning, though, is that it can be a great equalizer. If you look at statistics on the digital skills gap in the US, people are more likely to lack digital skills if they are one of three things. One is a racial minority, two is have some type of disability, and three, if they're poor. And those three things can be equalized, and people can climb out of poverty, can improve their income and their ability to live the lifestyle that they prefer if they learn digital skills. So there's a huge gap between the opportunity that's available and people taking advantage of it. And I think that's because a lot of adult online instruction is done poorly, and it's boring and arduous and hard to access. It's what we're trying to solve with Skillsprint, is providing a more approachable, more pleasant, more successful way to learn with daily microlearning. But I think there's a lot of people out there taking a lot of different approaches. There's a lot of people buying $10 courses on Udemy. I don't know how many people are completing them, even if the course material itself is excellent. So I think the next thing we really have to look at is, in adult learning, is what motivates adults to actually complete courses and actually learn and acquire the skills they need to be successful.
No, I like the part that they are value based and also micro learning. That it doesn't matter if you have a tough schedule or work. It actually lets you to get a new skills or learn new things while you're working.
Yeah, I actually talked to one of our members the other day, who's a train conductor, and he sits down with his phone between, on his breaks between train trips, and he does a little bit of learning, 10, 15 minutes in the time that he fits it in. I think a lot of people are in those types of schedules, everybody from busy parents to people working multiple jobs. And you got to be able to take advantage of that time when you're, in line at the supermarket or sitting in your car waiting to pick up the kids. That's an optimal time to learn if the learning is formatted so you can take advantage. It's really, really hard for people to fit together an hour or two in the evening, especially if they have families and kids and demands. You got to prepare dinner and put the kids to bed or take them to activities. It's very, very hard. I get that. But also, these digital skills are so critical that, as time goes on, you're going to find yourself more and more at a disadvantage if you don't find a way to learn them.
Yeah, totally. And this is something that highlight in your resume or your curriculum, like having new skills and knowledge on specific things.
Yep.
But actually, this is a very interesting question, because from your perspective, what would be the top 5 skills a trainer should have in 2024? Like, we have seen a lot of things, and there is a lot of information out there. And I have seen people that they're always looking for new things to learn, but I think that there is some misinformation, and they constantly repeat the same thing, so they tend to be a little bit lost.
Yeah, I don't think this is the answer you're expecting. But if you look back, we all remember teachers we had in school growing up who made an impact on us. And usually what was special about them is, they really cared about their topic and their students. They had a way of presenting information that resonated, and that they held us as kids accountable for learning. So, my 4th grade teacher, Mr. Lombard, was funny, but he was engaging, he was whip smart, and he made us accountable for learning the material. And he actually was the first person to really introduce me into coding with computers way back in 1983 and 1984 with TRS-80s. And so, teachers like that have an impact. So for me, I think it's the same thing for trainers. You got to care, and you've got to be able to communicate. You've got to be able to engage. You've got to know your topic, and you've got to hold people accountable for learning. I think it's as simple as that. I think we make this very, very complicated. I'm not a trained instructional designer, but I think, oftentimes people who are trained in instructional design might get a little too engaged with theories of instruction. And I understand why theoretical research is important. But in the end, there are some basics we need to get to before we get to the theoretical. I frequently have a debate about whether people can learn from ugly learning that's poorly produced, and the answer is they can. But how many of them quit before it starts because the learning has no credibility? I think it's pretty obvious what makes a good trainer. But at the same time, it's not easy to find someone who's got all of those tools.
Wonderful, thank you. I think Mr. Lombard did a great job with you introducing you to programming.
He tried. I think teachers are, I think Mr. Lombard and every other teacher I have, is responsible for input, not output. And in the end, whether or not I learned or anybody learned is really their own responsibility and up to their own level of engagement and willingness to put forth effort. I feel like since I entered adult learning and went into various conferences and discussions with other professionals, that people are seeking through tools. If only we had this magic bullet, people would learn and it would be easy and they wouldn't have to put forth effort, and the behavior would change, or they'd be able to demonstrate the new knowledge. The reality is that learning something takes effort, and if people won't put forth that effort, there's nothing even the best trainer can do to help them move forward. But we can make it a lot easier by being good trainers.
That's true. So, how do you envision the learning and development industry in the next few years? I know that you have attended to many conference. You attended DevLearn as well.
Yep.
And I see that there are a lot of new tools. And right now, everyone is speaking about AI, ChatGPT, AVR, video programming, new authoring tools. So,
I mean, I've been really serious about going to conferences in the industry since Twitter was introduced. That was the first revolution that was going to change learning. Then it was mobile devices, microlearning, VR, AR, and now AI. I envision the learning and development industry in the next few years continuing to trace whatever trend is profitable, whether or not it improves outcomes for learners. So right now we're sticking AI on anything that does any type of computer processing because that's the new trend. AR and VR, which everyone seems to have forgotten about, that was 2 years ago. I feel like the industry, unfortunately, is very vendor driven and people are chasing, all of these new technologies. But, heck, what makes effective learning really hasn't changed all that much since the Greek times of, Aristotle and Plato and the mentorship and teacher-student relationship. So I think regardless of what the learning and development industry does, and regardless of whatever the next, paradigm shift is going to be, it's going to continue to focus on the trainer and the student. And whether that happens in an electronically mediated way, where I am teaching students through online video courses and it's a one-to-many type of relationship, or if it's one-to-one and I'm, teaching one person one thing, the core of that remains being a teacher, having the heart of a teacher, having that attitude where you care about the outcomes and motivate and also people who are willing to learn. No technology is going to change that. And I think the more we focus on, and I hope there's a backlash where we go back to focusing on the human part of this industry and humanize things more, I think we'll be better off for it. And that doesn't mean there's no place for technology. I'm a big proponent of technology, but I think technology has to be informed by and mediated by human needs and human behaviors.
Yeah, a tool that makes things better. I believe that people right now is very focused on create or build a great product instead of actually the experience that a user will have.
Yes, I'm very active on LinkedIn. People can follow me there just by searching for my name. And I was in a discussion last night about whether or not you state learning objectives at the beginning of the video. In this video, we're going to learn A, B, and C. They're supposed to be outcome focused, etc. And someone pointed out, learning objectives are what we use as learning, as to guide us in creating learning. But if we were truly learner focused, we'd realize that the learner's objective is different. And every learner might have a different objective. And that's the objective we should care about. So I thought, it's that refocusing as learning experience design, as that paradigm tries to do, focus on a learner-centric model that meets the needs of the learner. And I'll be the first to say my medium, which is video, actually probably has the most challenge in meeting the need of individual learners because everyone gets the same damn video. That's going to be a tough one to solve. But I think the more we really approach things from an empathetic point of view and start with the learner and what their needs are, the better off we're going to be.
That's true. Thank you. So, in your opinion, what are the pros and cons of using no-code tools to create training content?
The pros are, right, it's more approachable, it's faster, it's easier for people to onboard with the tools. They can very quickly get their first learning content out there. But I think sometimes the features are also drawbacks. Years ago, I remember when the first rapid learning development tools come out, they said, now anybody can make learning. Well, should anybody be making learning? Because I've met the average person and I'm not sure they should be making learning. George Carlin, famous comedian in the US, used to say, think of how dumb the average American is and then realize that half the people are dumber than that. It's not a very positive way to look at things, but, I'm not sure everyone should be making learning, and enabling them to do so has led to a lot of bad learning where people who are ill-prepared, ill-trained to make it. So that's the con of the no-code tools, right, is that it's so accessible that anybody can do it. But at the same time, they've enabled a lot of people who are very good at what they do and very professional to make it. Using code, on the other hand, is more time consuming, requires a lot more training and deeper technical knowledge, but you can build anything with code. I think it's a matter of looking at your case, right? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to, simulate a commercial aircraft, or are you trying to train people not to mix ammonia and bleach so they don't kill everybody? And there's a different level of technical sophistication that requires different tools.
Yeah, that's challenging, actually.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with choosing to use code or choosing to use no-code tools.
It complements each other, but
yeah, even though I am by training and profession, people would consider me a coder. I do know languages and teach them. I don't use code for everything, so it's not the right answer for everything.
Amazing. So in terms of courses and coding, do you teach a course on HTML coding? I've seen them. What are the common struggles of your training students or students in learning and development?
So, there's two. First of all, when we talk about, technical material in general, the struggles are that often coding is a new way of thinking for people that is unlike anything they have done before. So it requires people to wrap their mind around a new paradigm, a new way to solve problems in this kind of pseudo language. And that can be a difficult transition for people who haven't done it before. Which is why I'm a big proponent, by the way, of if you're going to learn to code, learning HTML first, which is an easier introduction to coding than starting with Java, which requires you understand 11 separate concepts in order to put hello world on the screen. But of course, students learning HTML and coding and development are no different than other people training online. Same difficulties. First of all, is the finding time to learn. Often, running out of money in the middle of their training program. The other challenge, finding enough practice content. If you're looking at an online course, make sure it includes lab exercises and lots of practice content, because you don't learn by watching even the best online lecturers. You learn from doing the work afterwards. I read something today on LinkedIn that the only way to learn a programming language is to write code. So, and of course, the other challenge is, sifting through the significant amount of poorly designed learning content out there, and finding someone who's good and resonates with you. I'll tell you, I'm not the right instructor for everybody. I've enrolled 2.5 million people over 10 years, but that doesn't mean I'm the right instructor for you. You've got to find the person who resonates with you and talks in the language that you understand and makes you comfortable, that you connect with, which is, there's a lot of options. And then there's, of course, content that's just plain bad. And avoiding that is always a challenge too.
Someone told me that actually, if you know HTML or you learn how to code with HTML, it actually opens like a wide window of possibilities
Yeah.
to do, even if you are doing like
Well,
using an authoring tool. Like
I would argue, right, in schools today, we teach chemistry, we teach biology. Why don't we teach HTML? Because, these kids are in digital media 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but they have no idea or no understanding of how it's put together. HTML is the base of all digital media. So just understanding that gives you an insight into what you're consuming every day, how it works and how it's made, and what the limitations are. And so I think it's very, very important. I think it's modern literacy to know HTML. So I do think more people need to learn. And it does, kind of like if you've taken a class on film in school, you never watch a movie quite the same way.
yeah.
I took a couple of film classes years ago at the University of Texas, which has ruined me from movies. Because I watch now with a critical eye. I watch TV, looking for camera angles and narrative techniques and how they're lighting, and I forget to watch the narrative. I forget to watch the story. Well, HTML enables you to be one of those people who gets the inside jokes with digital media, who understands what you're seeing, how it's put together. It's the baseline skill for putting together anything digital. So I think everybody should learn it. And by the way, it's pretty easy to learn. It's not
I need to
difficult.
take that course to create HTML code and embed it at Genially.
Take HTML and create content. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Our last question. So, an advice to our community, instructional designers and instructional designers who are just starting out or transitioning in the training or learning and
Yeah,
development.
I mean, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that, because like my road to instructional design was so bumpy. I started as first as a social worker, and then a coder and software developer, then a software development instructor, and I kind of found my way. I think, just to continue the theme, remember the human beings who are the ones who are consuming the content that you are designing. You remember there's a person at the end of that who, by the way, you may be empowering to do a job or do their new job or keep their job, or the skill that they learn from your content may be the one that prevents a new college graduate from having a really uncomfortable situation with sexual harassment. This is important work, and you impact people's lives with the content that you make. So I think to take it seriously, find the joy in it, and learn everything you can, and remember that theory is just that. It's we should do content that's informed by theory, but theory should never substitute for your judgment and creativity.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark, for
Thank
joining
you.
this episode of Coffee with Genially. People, if you would like to get a Genially free trial, you can scan the code right here. And if you would like to become an ambassador, you can scan this code as well. Thank you very much, and see you in another episode of Coffee with Genially.